Hello, good afternoon. Eliana Amaral from Unicamp, University of Campinas. Thank you very much for being with us and taking the time to talk with us about some very important issues regarding education in Latin America. And I would like to welcome you before and after that. Please let us know how's everything down in Unicamp regarding the COVID contingency and in Brazil. What can you tell us about it? How has your university weathered this pandemic?
Yeah. Well, you may know that as all other places in the world, we are in the second wave and it's reaching the worst point as in the first wave. So we believe that it will be even worse than that.
Mm-hmm.
Our university Unicamp was the first to decide to move to remote education in Brazil. So very, very short, very close to the date that was declared the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
we decided on March 12th also to move to remote education.
Mm-hmm.
And we are unsure about 21. As you know, in Brazil, in the south, we are starting a new calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
So we are in doubts about what would happen in 21 until 2 or 3 months ago when we are making plans. But now we are sure that we need to continue on remote. So we need to follow the regulations inside the country.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have the regulations more clear in terms of being able to continue on remote. So we had 1 year of remote education with a lot of consequences for the programs that need some on-site training, and particularly the ones who are on-site in services like the health
Sure.
program, like
Mm-hmm.
medicine or particularly dental surgery, and
Mm-hmm.
has been a nightmare
I can
because
imagine.
medicine and nursing they were all allowed to return in the second semester of our year, what means from uh, from August or September they returned to the clinical sites. But in terms of the dental situation is worst because uh, the situation and the risk is
Mm-hmm.
worse. So we had to start revising and rebuilding, in fact. So it's not ready.
No
In terms,
has.
yes, and it's not ready until now. So we have the cohort that might be graduating this year. They are unable to graduate because they were unable to have all year. I mean, since March, things
Ah,
are online what's possible, so it's remote what's possible, but they had no clinical experiences.
exactly.
And
That's all the challenges, right?
yes,
Of
yes,
digital. And I'm asking you about the pandemic because it is having a tremendous effect on education on a worldwide scale. But you mentioned something very important is moving us towards more use of technology and also the use of distance education. What's the perception of distance education in Brazil?
it was really for us, not in Brazil, but if you understand that we are in a public institution, in
Sure.
Brazil, public institutions are the research institutions that
Mm-hmm.
they are more into, let's say, the research area, as well as they have more criticisms on distance education
Yes.
because they understand as more, how can I say, commercial,
Sure. Yeah.
more
Yeah. Sure.
commercial education.
Sure. Sure.
So there was a very strong resistance before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So it was unacceptable to discuss distance learning for undergraduate programs or distance learning for academic graduate programs.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the pandemic, when we decided to move to remote, we had some resistance, particularly in the human science, in the people from humanities.
Mm-hmm.
But we are
Mm-hmm.
able, as leadership, as well as the situation in country, we are able to overcome this resistance. And then in 1 month or so, people decided to adhere to the remote education. So it was across the university
Mm-hmm.
at Unicamp. But remember that the federal universities, they don't. So in federal university in country, they all stopped the regular, so it was not counting as an academic year.
Oh, wow.
Only Unicamp, and then after Unicamp, the other state universities in São Paulo state, the leading ones. So Unicamp, USP, and UNESP, we did move to remote since the beginning March or April, but the federal university didn't.
Wow.
They stopped.
They stopped operation, and they
stopped. They stopped the classes, let's say.
Wow.
So the institution was open in remote in office work, but in fact they were unable to continue the undergraduate programs until the second semester, when then they decided to reconnect. What happened is, because Unicamp was the first, we are the ones who could give them some more, let's say, made them believe that it would be possible. Because we started, so Unicamp was an example and helped to move forward the country later on, because then they started to call myself as the leader, as well as our faculty members, to discuss in the specific areas, let's say the chemistry institute. So people from other chemistry institute started to call our chemistry institute to say, "Well, you are doing? How are you doing? What are you doing with the labs? Blah, blah, blah," all this sharing of experiences. So it was a kind of psychological support in a way.
Well, good. I mean,
a little bit of technical support, a lot of psychological support for faculty members. Because, as I said, distance learning has there is a lot of reaction into the public system against, because it was considered a way to reduce prices of education and to spread out in the private sector.
Yes, and also the stigma of lower quality. I mean, it's prevalent in Latin America. I think even in the rest of the world, still distance education, online education, it's still not seen as equal, right? As a face-to-face instruction. But the thing is, with the pandemic and also the growth of technology, it's going to become more and more frequent, right? And at least that's our belief. But within this talk, there's this very important area of technology. And technology and innovation, they seem to go hand in hand. A lot of people think that you cannot innovate without the use of technology. Do you think that's true? Do you think
not really. I see innovation as much more than technology. But of course, technology, as a friend of mine always say, one professor here, technology is sexy. So
exactly. It's sexy, and it's yes,
but I see innovation as a concept that goes beyond technology. In fact, comes before, and it's part of the soft skills that you have to develop. It's a competence that's needed in our institutions. I mean, university institutions like Unicamp. Innovation is part of. So what comes with innovation? It's your critical thinking and movement in direction of a new proposal, how to do different, and how to do different based on science, and not really just creating because you are creative, because you are smart. So if you take this ample definition of what innovation means, technology, yes, can be used, but it's not the only thing. And because we started to move, language is really tricky. People sometimes, they are very resistant against words. So distance learning is something that people is very resistant. If we talk about using digital education somehow, or other words, and the change for emergency remote education helped us to overcome this resistance. Because one point that for me is really the point, in remote education, I used to say that you believe that synchronous activities are key. what is totally different from distance learning.
Yeah, sure.
Distance learning education have a belief that people must have the possibility of educating themselves almost without the facilitation of someone. So it's kind of self-made man or woman, okay?
Yes.
And then the educators in Brazil that are very attached to, Freire is all about, emotional, the interaction, and etc. So when you say that the education goes because you have a platform and people just do whatever they want by themselves, it loses the value of professors in general or faculty members in terms of the higher education. So when we change this perspective, the acceptance of digital education is totally different. So what happened with the remote education is that for the traditional educators, some of them found out that they can interact, and we are very close. In fact, we are very close now.
Yes. I mean,
I am not as close as we are if we are in a big room, okay? So we are really close. So the more traditional ones, some of them were able to have this feeling that they were together with people, even using the screen. We use it to also, one kind of stimulus was to say, look, because people are in such a bad situation, it's important that our students continue in contact with the institution and professors and etc. So if we continue with the remote education, they were not abandoned in their homes, taking care of their families and worrying about their lives. So it was a kind of anti-stress also for students, for the professors themselves.
Right.
It was also a big issue to be just waiting to see. The pandemic is still there, so it would last 2 years. Okay.
Right.
So these were two elements that made a lot of difference in my view. And even for professors who are not very keen on the pedagogical issues, the ones who are keeping themselves in a very traditional way of delivering vertical knowledge things, when remote education started, they realized that it was impossible. So it was a kind of very, how can I say, it was a quick faculty training, perfection and training, because they had to be more to synthesize things, understand what is important among all the elements that they wanted to deliver. So apart from a perfect training on distance learning, what happened is the consciousness about your role as educator changed. So people assumed much more their role as educators in the middle of the pandemic, because, as I say, the pandemic brought a very strong empathic feeling. So people were empathic one on each other, and so professors to students with professors. So they value the effort of our professors trying to do something different.
And how did you manage to we've seen a lot of needs of training for professors. A lot of them are not really well versed in technological tools. For example, it's not just connecting to the internet, right? There's collaborative works. Some of them don't know that. How did you take to that?
Okay.
Do you have specific programs?
Yes. Well, first, before pandemic, we are already working on providing some training on use of Moodle, use of less of these conference programs, platforms, but much more on educational platforms. So the use of Moodle has been here for a long while. So we already had our 2,000 professors registered, and many of them had some use of Moodle. Okay, so this is something, yes, what would happen. The use of conference platforms was not so common, like StreamYard or Zoom or Meet, but because of the meetings that we had to do with most of them to discuss about the pandemic, so they trained it very quickly on
they have to learn.
Zoom, okay, so this was an easy task.
Hands-on.
Yes, and before we also had training on making videos, working on podcasts, and also lots of discussion on active learning. We have a faculty development office that has been very active. So what happened was, in the very beginning, in the first 2 weeks, we created a site with a lot of resources, nationally or internationally. We called people for training and for lots of, particularly for lots of webinars. Since there was no experience in Brazil at that time, we started webinars internationally. So talking with people in Portugal. So Portugal telling us how they were doing, what were the effects, how students are adopting, the faculty members, and etc. So we had with Minho a very strong connection with Minho, and Minho is easy because they speak Portuguese, so makes accessible for everybody. Also with UNAM, very strong connections with UNAM and other people in US and etc. So a lot of webinars, and because these webinars were so needed by our faculty members, and we opened also for others in Brazil.
Fantastic.
There was an effect in our faculty members, because then they saw the people from outside in other institutions in Brazil coming to Unicamp to learn. So they said, wow, now we are teaching them.
Fantastic.
Marketing. It's part of our internal marketing.
It's like a circle. It's a continuous cycle. It's really good.
Yeah. So in a moment, the kind of support we are giving you are kind of general. We also bought some specific training. Remember that we are a public institution, and buy products outside is difficult. Even let's say that you have a very good training on something. I can't say I'm buying your training. In Brazil, you have to have different prices, blah, 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 blah. So it's difficult. We have to handle all this. So we had our training made like homemade training that we had available before. We intensified all this training. Some from outside. We are part of the STEM. Do you know about the STEM initiative in Brazil? Okay, STEM initiative, science, technology, engineering, with age, humanity, and the sciences, okay? It's a group of lots of private institutions, but also some public institutions as ourselves and UNESCO. And it's a very strong institution that use it to move forward let's say modernization, upgrading higher education. I mean, the technology side. So I think it's and we also had the links with them and the opportunities they were offering. Also professors could take. But there are some other internal initiatives that help it. Again, first, we have students, undergraduate and graduate students, that receive fellowship to support education. Fantastic. So this young generation was, of course, a resource for the ones who are the old professors not trained to, open Moodle or make something. So our students were very helpful in make the thing work, because some professors that were in panic, since we were far from the technology,
Yes,
They
yes.
then accepted that their students, their helpers, they used to help in education. So they were the TAs that helped to make
Fantastic.
things happen.
And the
And
collaboration between professors and students must have been really, really interesting,
yes,
because I mean,
so
that's
what happened was a very intense experiential learning for
exactly,
professors
exactly,
as well.
exactly.
I think was another element that made things really made it easier.
Okay,
And
smooth,
it,
smooth.
yes,
Mhm.
yes, turned the transition. So all this was very intense. March, April, May. From May, things were more easygoing.
Okay, okay, okay.
But then there is this tension of uh, the long duration of remote education and what is
Exactly,
left behind and
exactly.
how we are going to recover
Mm.
and the financial consequences because in Brazil Unicamp is a public institution. Students don't pay
Mhm.
for their program, but living in Campinas is very expensive. So a lot of students had houses here, rent some place, and etc. So it's a problem to decide if you continue or not with your rent. There is a big economic crisis in
Exactly.
consequence,
Mhm.
as you may understand.
Mhm.
And now everybody, well, we decided one thing that was decided since the very beginning was the release of a lot of rules, academic rules that could make the life very difficult.
Okay.
Our scores, they used to be 0 to 10.
Uh-huh.
So we decided, we gave the option for professors to assume as approve it or not approve it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
sufficient is sufficient.
Yes, yes.
We, from the beginning, decided that every program could last 1 year more. So giving an extra year for the
Mm-hmm.
program.
Mhm.
Yes. So if it was a 4 year program, could be 5 year program without counting as delayed because we have a limit. In our institution, more than 50% of the time, you are dismissed.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
okay, 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 okay. You have to finish on time.
Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
Mhm. So if it's 4 years, you have six, then you can have 2 semesters extra, but we also gave another year extra. So in fact, uh, four can become eight, but anyway. So we understand that we have now students that will last at least 1 year more or
Yeah.
two. Well, a big consequence for our budget is that we have now 50% of our students come from public schools before, what means they are from the lower strata of the society.
Exactly.
And we
Uh-huh.
have a very strong supporting program that we put our money. What happened? They will continue.
Exactly.
So it will last more. And we have no sign from our state government, because in our case it's a state government,
Uh-huh.
that they are thinking about supporting this.
It's still very different from Mexico. It's just very the structure is and the problems are similar. There's
Yeah,
no relief so yet, or yes. Oh, it's a complicated situation. Yeah.
yeah. So we can see that the consequences financially will be very hard because let's say that we have, in the case that it's true, we have 40 million reais per year that we put on support for students. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, scholarships and to pay living expenses. We have a lot of things. If students continue, what happened with the incomers, the ones who are coming,
Exactly.
the
Mhm.
freshmen?
The freshmen. Uh-huh. Mhm.
Because we might have them as priority.
Mhm.
But now that we have people who had 3 or 4 years of undergraduate programs and they still need support, we have to continue the support.
Mhm.
And then, or we go up with the money, no, there is no limit for that.
No, but it's complex, of course. Where do you get the resources for the freshmen, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So we'll see this.
that's still going to be discussed. You're still going to have to find a solution to that. But you don't see no governmental support for that
No,
yet. Not yet. Okay.
not yet. I don't think they will,
You
because
don't think
there is
they
a
will?
big movement in Brazil.
Yes.
I mean, in the state of São Paulo. On the opposite, before pandemic, there was a big pressure from the state of São Paulo to
Mhm.
reduce the apport of money, the amount of money
Oh.
that they give.
Even
Because
before the pandemic, they
yes,
were
because
great.
what happened is our universities and our research institution in the state of São Paulo, we receive an amount of the taxes from
Oh,
goods.
okay.
So in the taxes from goods in the state, there is a fixed proportion that comes to the university, okay?
Uh-huh.
So the state believes that it's too much money for too low product. Well, but the pandemic showed that the universities were the solution for the pandemic. Of course, university hospitals,
Of
a
course.
lot of in our institution, we assumed thousands of hundred thousand exams, the PCR,
Mhm.
because the research labs they assumed the responsibility of becoming assistential labs,
Mhm.
and a lot of other things that's happening in everywhere. So,
Uh,
uh, in a way, the pandemic gave us credibility
Fantastic.
and gave us political support to now complain about any money that you try to take from
It,
institutions, from research, and from
it,
like ours.
you made it more difficult for them to take money from you because now
Yes,
people
yes,
see
yes,
that
yes.
side of the
They tried.
university, the
They
social
tried,
side.
but now
Yeah.
when we complain and we start to screaming in the newspaper and etc. and television, now the politicians they have to listen because we
Fantastic.
have the population that now understand and see our value.
Well, that's a very good ally in your fight against defunding of higher education.
Yeah,
And let me ask you one question. At Unicamp, innovation and all this, is it managed centrally? For example, do you only have one campus? Do you have several campuses?
we
Does
have
each
okay.
campus have, or everything is within, or within every area or school, engineering does its own thing, medicine,
Yeah,
or
okay.
how do you deal with it?
The majority of the teaching units, I mean the schools, are in
Mhm.
Campinas.
Okay.
It's the central campus in
Mhm.
Campinas, and
Mhm.
where we also have the Innova. Innova is the our sector of innovation, but
Okay.
Innova, it's the name Innova from innovation.
Sure.
Innova use it to put their eyes and energy on products with industries and etc. Nothing about education. Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
innovation in education is something that we have inside the university in a group that is educational technology group, something like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
and the innovation tech, not call it innovation, but the educational technology
Mhm.
unit is was under my office
Okay.
with the faculty development office as they work together. Okay,
Okay.
so innovation as a big concept is
It
not
is.
on educational side. Okay,
Mhm.
okay. So we have most of our schools are in Campinas, but we have schools in in another city called Piracicaba. It's only the dental school, only
Okay.
one, because it's an
Mhm.
old one that was brought into the university. And we have a nucleus with two other units in another city that is less than 100 kilometers from Campinas, that is Limeira. So we have different poles,
Mhm.
but innovation in education comes more into Limeira, what is a new school, and they even have a proposal. They don't work in departments, different
Okay.
from the main campus. They don't have departments. They are more integrated and etc. So, and they have younger faculty members. So
Okay.
this is another point.
Yes.
Unicamp nowadays has 50% of the faculty members. They were hired in the last 10 years. Okay.
Okay.
Some of them are young, some
Yeah.
less than years, but they are not so young. They came from some other place.
Yeah.
Well, what means that we now have some faculty members that have been in other institutions with other experiences to
Right.
bring into. So the young generation of faculty members, of course, they are easier to move for education in the
Yes.
direction of
Mhm.
educational innovations than the older generation. So, and they are now 50%. So another strategy for us is to work, is to identify the younger generation and bring the younger generation and tell them, look, we want you to innovate in education. We are here to support you to innovate. And then we are putting we
Mhm.
put some kind of research projects as well as support, financial support from central office for them to make proposals.
Okay. That's an interesting system that you have, and what you mentioned regarding the idea that older faculty still have difficulty with technology are not something that we see quite a bit in Latin America, in an institution as well. What we found is that through collaboration, it might be useful for them to work. And this is my final question for you. How do you see the value of collaboration in your university with the other universities in Brazil, international collaboration? How do you see it? And also, if that's the future of education, is education going to be collaborative?
I totally agree.
Mhm.
Um, Again, I think this is another thing that pandemic
Yes,
has come to help
yes,
because there is no more limits. I mean, I can have this in our case what we call discipline could be a module or teaching unit as anything that you can call. We can have together.
yes.
We can, okay, we can deliver together and interact. I mean, it's so we are talking now about the all the process of internationalization.
Okay.
It's totally different now because you can be international without leaving your home, without leaving your country,
Mhm.
and interacting in education and having opportunity to not only to have to choose other units, but more than that, to interact with students from other institutions and professors from other institutions. I think it's one of the big advantages that we have from the pandemic area in terms of the academic regulations, because many people believe that we have very strict rules in Brazil that make things difficult. I mean,
It's a
um,
perception that people have that it's a difficult
yes,
country yes.
yes. So people, oh, we are bureaucratic. There is no way. No, it's not the case.
Brazil has
Like,
it's like very insular, like they've been closed for
yes,
many
yes,
years.
but the language is a problem. Language is a problem. Remember that in Brazil, people don't speak English. It's different from Mexico. In Mexico, people do speak English. I mean, in this
Yes.
level,
No,
university level.
yes, and we're closer to them and whatnot. I mean, yes.
Yes, but it's really difficult. Even into our, as I told you, even for our professors, we decided to start with Minho as the collaborator because then Portuguese would be the language.
Right.
Remember that the professors who are dedicated to education are not the ones who are dedicated to research.
Yes, 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 yes.
Research based professors, they speak English and other languages and they go abroad. The ones who are dedicated to education, they usually stay at home.
Yes, yes,
So
yes. So
they are
it's
less
a challenge, even.
international.
Yes, 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 yes. It's really a challenge to actually train them because not only the subject or the technology, whatever, it's the language in which the technology is used, and that's how you start. And it's a problem all over Latin America. So people said, well, let's develop our own technology. Sure, I'm well up for that. I mean, really, but in the meantime.
Yeah,
We
yes, yes.
also start.
So and because we speak Portuguese in Brazil, not even Spanish,
Yes, 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 yes. It's a
uh,
lot. No,
it makes things difficult. So I have been trying to expose people to the other languages. Like we had the seminars with Unan as well,
uh-huh.
and I say, okay, if you don't understand, we can translate. It's easy, but don't feel people feel afraid of
Yes,
any
yeah.
program in other language and etc. So um, finally, I think that not only can we can collaborate in many ways. I
Mhm.
think collaboration in education is something again to make education sexy. If we believe that pandemic brought the perception very clear of our role as educators, as I said,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of people, if they can find a very promising collaboration in education internationally, developing, let's say, developing apps or things like that. This
Mhm.
would be brilliant. It's brilliant because we have a very smart young professors who would love to dedicate part of their scientific production in
Sure,
education.
sure, sure, sure.
I have in Brazil the first program, academic graduate program on education for health professions. So
Mhm.
doctorate, PhD, and master in this area. And what we were surprised by the number of people who have had their master programs in the very basic biology, science,
Mhm.
and labs, and when we opened the PhD in education, people moved from one area to the other saying, look, what I like is education. I like to
Yeah.
teach. So
Including theology.
if I can have my academic degree in education, it meets exactly my best. So we received many more candidates that we expected.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. It's collaborate interdisciplinary,
Yes.
transdisciplinary. It's
So one
really.
suggestion, I don't know exactly what are the goals of this the observatory.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
I think that developing programs that are transnational, look, like if I want a PhD in Brazil and
mhm.
say that it's an international program, it's a kind of nightmare with copies and etc. But again, we can do things that we share, and you
Mhm.
have your degree in your institution, I have my degree in my
Yeah.
institution, that's it.
Mhm.
But it's a program that, you know,
Yes,
we have connection.
yes, yes, yes.
And so we can make collaborations in many ways. And my belief is that we have to professionalize higher education in
Yes,
Latin America and
yes, yes.
professionalize. And in my view, the experience of the pandemic will bring quicker this process because we are kind of 10 or 20 years delayed in terms of the movement with
No,
it.
we're behind in many, many things. There's a lot of challenges in Latin America. I think we share a lot of similar challenges. The solutions to each of our problems are different, but through collaboration, we can find out how did you manage to do it, and that can inspire me to tweak it and maybe apply it. And it's really through collaboration how we're going to make education better. Thank you very much for talking with us. It's been a pleasure, and really please, if there's anything you need, if there's anything we can help you with in the Observatory or Tecnológico de Monterrey, please let us know. We're eager to collaborate
Yeah.
with people in Brazil.
Yeah, I think that yes. Let me if you continue in contact and informing what kind of initiatives we are
Should
going
be.
into, maybe it's a good time for you to help us. We are in a change of leadership at Unicamp.
Okay.
There are process of consultation to the community, and then the change of the rector or the president
Mm-hmm.
in April. I'm
In
part of
April.
one of the two. Yes, I am part of one of the three groups that are running.
Oh,
So I'm not
fantastic.
sure if I will
Hey,
be in a higher position or not.
hey, maybe well, we
But
should work.
anyway, independent on my position as
Mhm.
leader at the university in total, I do understand that Monterrey is the good partner for us as well as
Good.
UNAM. I know the people in Monterrey. I know the people in Yunnan, very close to them now. And anyway, I will continue to work with you.
Yeah, sure. Really, we have a very good connections with Brazil as well. But Latin America, but Brazil, we need to work a little closer. So
Closer,
we'll be in
yes.
touch. We'll be in touch.
Okay,
Thank you
okay,
very much.
Esteban.
And the best of luck in the pandemic and in your hopefully new
Yeah.
position and everything. Take good
Okay,
care
okay,
and thank you very much.
okay. See you. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.